Hey friends, I know I have not been very good about uploading these Harry Potter read-alouds, but I will do my best this week. I can't promise that I'll do one every day, but that is my goal. And worst case, you'll just have a couple more read-alouds to listen to into the first week or so of summer if I don't finish by then. We're a little bit over halfway done with the book, and I am picking back up with Professor McGonagall just saw Harry flying his broom and introduced him to the Quidditch captain. If you're following along, I'm picking up halfway through page 152, and in this video I will finish chapter 9 and maybe start chapter 10. Okay, here we go. It was dinner time, and Harry had just finished telling Ron what had happened when he'd left the grounds with Professor McGonagall. Ron had a piece of steak and kidney pie halfway to his mouth, but he had forgotten all about it. Seeker, he said, but first years never. You must be the youngest player in about a century, said Harry, shoveling pie into his mouth. He felt particularly hungry after the excitement of the afternoon. Wood told me that. Ron was so amazed, so impressed, he just sat and gaped at Harry. I start training next week, said Harry, only don't tell anyone. Wood wants to keep it a secret for now. Fred and George Weasley now came into the hall, spotted Harry, and hurried over. Well done, said George in a quiet voice. Wood told us. We're on the team, too. The Beaters. I tell you, we're going to win that Quidditch Cup for sure this year, said Fred. We haven't won since Charlie left, but this year seems going to be brilliant. You must be good, Harry. Wood was almost skipping when he told us. Anyway, we've got to go. Lee Jordan reckons he's found a new secret passageway out of the school. Bet it's that one behind the statue of Gregory the Smarmy that we found in our first week. See you. Fred and George had hardly disappeared when someone far less welcome turned up, Malfoy, flanked by Crabbe and Goyle. Having a last meal, Potter? When are you getting the train back to the Muggles? You're a lot braver now that you're back on the grounds and got your little friends with you, said Harry coolly. There was, of course, nothing at all little about Crabbe and Goyle, but as the high table was full of teachers, neither of them could do more than crack their knuckles and scowl. I'd take you on any time on my own, said Malfoy. Tonight, if you want. Wizard's duel. Wands only. No contact. What's the matter? You've never heard of a wizard's duel before, I suppose? Of course he has, said Ron, wheeling around. I'm his second. Who's yours? Malfoy looked at Crabbe and Goyle, sizing them up. Crabbe, he said. Midnight all right? We'll meet you in the trophy room. That's always unlocked. When Malfoy was gone, Ron and Harry looked at each other. What is a wizard's duel? Said Harry. And what do you mean you're my second? Well, a second's there to take over if you die, said Ron casually, getting started on his at last on his cold pie. Catching the look on Harry's face, he added quickly, but people only die in proper duels, with real wizards. The most you and Malfoy will be able to do is send sparks at each other. Neither of you knows enough magic to do any real damage. I bet he expected you to refuse anyway. And what if I wave my wand and nothing happens? Throw it away and punch him in the nose, Ron suggested. Excuse me. They both looked up. It was Hermione Granger. Can't a person eat in peace in this place, said Ron. Hermione ignored him and spoke to Harry. I couldn't help overhearing that you and Malfoy were saying. Bet you could, Ron muttered. And you mustn't go wandering around the school at night. Think of the points you'll lose Gryffindor if you're caught. And you're bound to be. It's very selfish of you. And it's none of your business, said Harry. Goodbye, said Ron. All the same, it wasn't what you'd call the perfect end to the day, Harry thought as he laid awake much later, listening to Dean and Seamus falling asleep. Neville wasn't back from the hospital wing yet. Ron had spent all evening giving him advice such as, if he tries to curse you, you better dodge it, because I can't remember how to block them. There was a very good chance they were going to get caught by Filch or Mrs. Norris, and Harry felt he was pushing his luck, breaking another school rule today. On the other hand, Malfoy's sneering face kept looming up out of the darkness. This was his big chance to beat Malfoy face to face. He couldn't miss it. It's 11:30, Ron muttered. We better go. They pulled on their bathrobes, picked up their wands, and crept across the tower room, down the spiral staircase, and into the Gryffindor common room. A few embers were still glowing in the fireplace, turning all the armchairs into hunched black shadows. They had almost reached the portrait hole when a voice spoke from the chair nearest them. "I can't believe you're going to do this, Harry." And a lamp flickered on. It was Hermione Granger, wearing a pink bathrobe and a frown. "You," said Ron furiously, "go back to bed." "I almost told your brother," Hermione snapped. "Percy. He's a prefect. He'd put a stop to this." Harry couldn't believe anyone could be so interfering. "Come on," he said to Ron. He pushed open the portrait of the fat lady and climbed through the hole. But Hermione wasn't going to give up that easily. She followed Ron through the portrait hole, hissing at them like an angry goose. "Don't you care about Gryffindor? Do you only care about yourselves? I don't want Slytherin to win the House Cup, and you'll lose all the points I got from Professor McGonagall for knowing the switching spells. Go away." "All right, but I warned you. You just remember what I said when you're on the train home tomorrow. You're so..." But whatever they were, they didn't find out. Hermione had turned to the portrait of the fat lady to get back inside and found herself facing an empty painting. The fat lady had gone on a nighttime visit, and Hermione was now locked out of Gryffindor Tower. "Now what am I going to do?" she asked shrilly. "That's your problem," said Ron. "We've got to go. We're going to be late." They hadn't even reached the end of the corridor when Hermione caught up with them. Remember, a corridor is kind of just like their long hallways. "I'm coming with you," she said. "You are not. Do you think I'm going to stand out here and wait for Filch to catch me? If he finds all three of us, I'll tell him the truth, that I was trying to stop you, and you can back me up." "You've got some nerve," said Ron. "Shut up, both of you," said Harry sharply. "I heard something." It was a sort of snuffling. "Mrs. Norris?" breathed Ron, squinting into the dark. But it wasn't Mrs. Norris. It was Neville. He was curled up on the floor, fast asleep, but jerked suddenly awake as they crept nearer. "Thank goodness you found me. I've been out here for hours. I couldn't remember the new password to get into bed." "Keep your voice down, Neville. The password's Pig Snout, but it won't help you now. The fat lady's gone off somewhere." "How's your arm?" said Harry. "Fine," said Neville, showing them. Madame Pomfrey mended it in about a minute. "Good. Well, look, Neville, we've got somewhere to be. We'll see you later." "Don't leave me," he said, scrambling to his feet. "I don't want to stay here alone. The Bloody Baron's been past twice already." Ron looked at his watch and then glared furiously at Hermione and Neville. "If either of you get us caught, I'll never rest until I've learned that curse of the Boygies Quirrell told us about and use it on you." Hermione opened her mouth, perhaps to tell Ron exactly how to use the curse of the Boygies, but Harry hissed at her to be quiet and beckoned them all forward. They flitted along the corridor stripped with bars of moonlight from the high windows. At every turn, Harry expected to run into Filch or Mrs. Norris, but they got lucky. They sped up a staircase to the third floor and tiptoed towards the trophy room. Malfoy and Crabbe weren't there yet. The crystal trophy cases glimmered where the moonlight caught them. Cups, shields, plates, and statues winked silver and gold in the darkness. They edged along the walls, keeping their eyes on the doors at either end of the room, and Harry took out his wand in case Malfoy leapt in and started at once, and the minutes crept by. "He's late. Maybe he's chickened out," Ron whispered. Then a noise in the next room made them jump. Harry had only just raised his wand when they heard someone speak, and it wasn't Malfoy. "Sniff around. They might be lurking in the corner." It was Filch speaking to Mrs. Norris. Horror-struck, Harry waved madly at the other three to follow him as quickly as possible, and they scurried silently toward the door, away from Filch's voice. Neville's robes had barely whipped around the corner when they heard Filch enter the trophy room. "They're in here somewhere," they heard him mutter. "They're probably hiding." "This way," Harry mouthed to the others, and petrified, they began to creep down a long gallery full of suits and armors. They could hear Filch getting nearer. Neville suddenly let out a frightened squeak and broke into a run.